Okay, hi, I'm Daniel, Merlin Goodbrey. I'm here today to talk about I'm running a new MA, Masters of the Arts, in digital comics. And it starts in September, and hopefully I'll have students. You don't actually know that detail yet. I brought some flyers about it at the front if anyone wants to grab one afterwards. I forgot that I said I'd do one of these talks, so I haven't prepared it, but I'm just going to give you a flavour of what I talk about in semester A of this course. It's a year-long course, so it's 3 semesters. Semester A starts in September, semester B runs until, I don't know, kind of May, June kind of time, and then from June, back around September again, that's when you do your kind of major study and you a big digital comics, etc. In semester A, I'm supposed to introduce all of what digital comics are in roughly 7-8 classes. So I had to think about how to do that, and I'm going to do that even quicker with you guys now. So this breaks down into basically 4 topics. So the first one I call script. I should warn you, I think everything on a computer, including all my artwork and whatever. So writing on like a piece of paper behind me, not a skill I have naturally. So if this looks weird or bad, that's why. So digital comics are a lot of different things. I kind of decided to have a slightly kind of like historical structure to them. So start where kind of most common forms of digital comics started, and then kind of build and jump around like that. And the idea is each of these things is going to be about 2 weeks, and in those 2 weeks we're a practice-based course, so everyone on it is going to be just making digital comics of this type. So script and screen is going to be about scripts. So 3-panel, 4-panel, but something this kind of shape. And although we're digital comics, it's hard to not think about newspaper strips, which is where the first kind of comic I'm going to talk about, which is webcomics, come from. So the web gets pictures around 94, 95, and that's the point at which web use kind of explodes, because once we have pictures as well as words, the web becomes interesting, and that's where webcomics kind of first appear. And when webcomics first appeared, the most popular format of them is essentially like the newspaper strip. And that's because newspaper strips fit inside screens. So they're designed for newspapers, but they work really well on a computer screen, which is how people are reading comics back then. So first thing, when you're making simple webcomic strips, can look at some newspaper strips, can look at the origins of comics as part of that as well, their origins in print and where kind of comic tropes come from. And students are going to make, like, I can't remember how many I said, 4 or 5 strips, ideally with a common cast. So I'm going to force them to invent some characters that use them on all the strips, and across 2 weeks, basically, I give a lecture, they're going to go make some strips, they're going to look at them halfway through, I give another lecture, and then they're going to deliver them at the end. And that's kind of the start of the thing. Because it's nice and simple, it gets you into thinking about serial storytelling, it gets you into thinking about characters, and you can start introducing one of these common formats of comics. Talked about screen being this kind of shape. That was true when webcomics were kind of first growing up. These days, screens, if you're reading the web, are most commonly this kind of shape. So newspaper strips don't fit so good. You see various solutions to this. I think like the most elegant solution to this is comics like, for example, Penny Arcade. I've lived my entire life with a spell check, so there we go. They make their strip in slices. So if you look at it on a computer screen, it appears like that. If you look at it on your phone screen, the panels slice up and appear like that. And that's quite like a neat solution to a working strip. You have to think about it a little bit when you create a comic. Because if you have a piece of artwork that goes like this over 2 panels, it gets weirdly broken in 2. As long as you remember not to do that, and you can serve stuff like this out quite clearly. So talking about kind of like pages and formats and stuff, the next 2-bit is going to be called panel and page, this felt a bit weird in a course specifically about digital comics. I think you can't be talking about comics without talking about the page, even though digital comics don't have pages, they have screens. But pages of this shape, And again, when screens started out, they were this shape, and now they're mostly this shape, but also you can kind of turn them around so they're that shape. So it's kind of example of kind of change and continuity a bit here. So for this one, students are going to make a 3-page comic, and I thought just to give them something else interesting to do, this one would be silent, so they're not going to use any words in this one, just to get them really thinking about visual storytelling more than dialogue, that kind of stuff. In terms of digital comics, how people treat the page is, especially in webcomics and earlier webcomics, not webcomics now, people generally just put a page onto the screen and you had to kind of scroll to read it, and there wasn't super huge amounts of thought about it. That doesn't work so well for people reading on smartphones, which is where everyone kind of reads the web now. And even when you have things like an Apple tablet, which you can kind of turn, straight recreations of the page on a tablet are a little tricky because tablets are just a bit smaller than a printed page, and so things like typography is quite readable on the comics page and might not be readable on the tablet page. So that still causes some issues working with the page. The most popular solution, and solution adopted by a lot of the big publishers putting stuff on the thing, was to do a thing that I have described as panel delivery. I'm not going to attempt to spell all of the word. No, I got there. Panel delivery. And panel delivery basically means you take your comics page, a bunch of panels, and you, rather than show it as a page, you show it kind of a panel at a time, or a couple of panels at a time. A lot of the big comic services have some semi-automated, or either semi-automated or very low paid to some poor person in some far-off country, way of taking an existing page of comics and dividing it up and serving it a panel at a time. And that's not amazingly exciting because it does mean a big page can be readable on a phone, which is great, so you can read your comic on the phone, but it breaks up a lot of what's cool about comics. This kind of idea of comics as a network of images, the interrelation between the images. One of the things that was kind of interesting that came out of it, though, was this idea of panel, sometimes called digital native comics, or panel, or essentially comics designed for panel delivery. There's a French guy called Yves. I might be getting his surname wrong, who was part of the French kind of Infinite Comics, Turbo Media scene. In the US, they start translating these things as Infinite Comics. And what this is essentially, you deliver comics panels at a time, you think about interesting ways of doing that. So you might know that, firstly, you tend to treat your screen as the site you want to be, let's say, is that, and when people click, first it adds one panel, and then it adds another panel. Then it adds another panel, and then maybe it adds or changes the word balloons over here. Each time you click, it kind of builds up and changes the kind of composition. These were really popular more in like the 2010s. People were playing with this format quite a lot, and I'm going to surprise the students in the second week and tell them not only are you delivering 3 pages of comics, I also want you to give me a panel delivery version. So they're going to get to kind of play with repurposing what we do. Like kind of halfway through the program. The big rival of panel delivery and the big rival of strip comics back in the early days of the web was an idea Scott McCloud had, which is called Infinite Canvas. And the Infinite Canvas will be weeks 5 and 6 of the lectures. Those are 2 weeks I haven't written yet, so go for those as well. Infinite Canvas. Idea of the canvas, really simple one. Rather than treat the screen as a page, you treat the screen as a window on a much larger page, or a much larger canvas. And if you will, infinite canvas. It's not actually infinite, it's just big. Sometimes people refer to it as like an expanded canvas or whatever. The idea is the reader has control of this window, and they can move the window around in different directions, and they can follow chains of panels off or whatever. And this was like, when the idea arrived, really exciting for a lot of creators. I was really excited about it. I did a lot of early canvas stuff. But it was mostly a kind of like experimental thing. It wasn't ever a big mainstream thing. Much more popular were first like newspaper strips, just traditional pages, or even like the panel delivery that used to be most popular. But what eventually happened was, most people said those modes were better and Infinite Canvas was worse. They were all wrong, because what eventually happened was a thing called Webtoon. So Webtoon is now like the big comics platform in the world, and Webtoon is essentially an infinite comics platform, but it limits you to a single scroll. So you don't move in all directions, you just scroll down, and all your panels appear like this, and then you scroll to read them. Lots of different reasons I think Webtoon became what it is. First of all, it had tons of good content originally coming out of South Korea, where it was from, and people wanted to read that because it spoke in lots of different styles. The just material of the web was changing. Things like YouTube and Facebook and social media were becoming where more of the content of the web was, so people got more into the they came to a single thing. And the other important thing was smartphones. And it was easy to build a website yourself that worked on any kind of computer. Building a comic for yourself and a web comic for yourself that worked and was easily findable on a smartphone was much harder. And sites like Webtoon were built to serve their comics, both for a computer screen and to a smartphone. This is where we see the majority of the common format of digital comics now often referred to as Webtoons. There are other sites out there like Tapas is probably the other really big one. It's that same kind of idea that the person's going to see this much of it and they're going to scroll through it, and that's that format. How much time? Oh, okay, cool. So if you're creating for a Webtoon format, it's kind of interesting as a creator because it's obviously quite different to the page. There are a bunch of different ways you can go about creating for Webtoon, but I think the two best are especially if you're starting out, you don't want to lock yourself to one format because you want to be able to get your stuff out in different ways. So that means at some point you'll probably want to think about putting your comic also in print, so that people who aren't going to read it on the screen can read it in print, or for people who love it on the screen can buy a copy of it in print. And really good examples of things that would be like War Olympus. I can get Herts funny. Anyway, that's not one of them. Two ways to do it. Either you can take your print page with its panels, and you can say, okay, this is now going to be read as a scroll. So you can take your panels out, you resize them, you make them kind of scroll and put space between them. And this can work pretty well. Again, you have to think about font size because what's readable here might not be readable here. So either you make sure when you're doing your font size it's going to read well at this kind of size, or you kind of read letter. And that works pretty well, and I've done that for a couple of webcomic series where I laid it out as a page and I relayed it out for Webtoon. Or you can do the opposite. You can say, well, actually, and one thing you notice immediately about Webtoon is they don't care about, and this is true of Infinite Canvas in general, they don't care about use of space in the way the comic page uses space. Comic pages have a really limited use of space because you've only got so much space to fit everything in. With a screen, you've got tons of space, and there's no set length to a scroll, so you can have a lot more space between panels. If you create a kind of Webtoon native comic, and you also want to do it as a print comic, all you need to do when you're making your scroll is you accept that you're not, as print, going to make as maximal use of space as you can. And you say, well, okay, this is my scroll, this is my cutoff, and this will still be a page. And then you think about, okay, within this kind of page format, I'm going to have a panel here, a panel here, and a panel here. Okay, it's a really bad layout, but I'm thinking off the top of my head. And you accept that when it's been printed, you're going to have a printed page with very few panels on it. And if you look at War Olympus in print, and there's 5-6 volumes of this in print now, it's exactly like that. The panels, there's very few panels per page, they're very spaced out, and it's basically because it's the scroll kind of sliced up, but as long as it's been designed so it can be sliced up, they haven't got a panel here that be cut in half. You just keep it down, okay, this is one group of panels, this is another group of panels, this is another group of panels. And if you look at my current series on rel.email.com, which is called Occasional Adventures of Lemmer and Spur. That's exactly what I'm doing there. So you look at it on the site, you'll see it's one long scroll, but actually if you look at it just a bit more carefully, roughly every 3 panels there's a break where you can make a page. So each page is going to have about 3 panels. That's the infant canvas. Very last thing I'm going to talk about in the first semester is a thing called hypercomics. And these are essentially comics that go a bit beyond what you can easily do in print, and you can make hypercomics in print. They are comics of some kind of choice for the reader. If you go back to the infant canvas and think of this idea of window, and we've got panels here. With these panels, you can have these panels go in a bunch of different directions. And the reader can choose which stream they follow. And that choice makes it a hypercomic. You can do it with infinite canvas, you can also do it like the web made of links. So you have panels and you click them, link to another panel, and you have a kind of net. It creates a kind of network game-like story. I have to wrap it up. That's the last thing I do. This is the last thing I do with them as well, because by this point I'm going to have to teach them some HTML. I'm terrified of doing that because I haven't done it in years, and I'm going to have to relearn it myself. That's roughly what we're going to do in the first semester, and then after the first 7 weeks of the first semester, they will have made a bunch of different comics. They get to pick 1 or 2 of them and then develop up into a longer comic over the remaining 5 weeks where they kind of go in the middle. If you want to do an MA English for Comics by any chance, there's a flyer at the front, or if you know anyone else would like to do it, you desperately need students, so please tell me about it. Thank you very much.